Welcome to the Hook and Cover podcast. He is former Tennessee safety Fred White. I'm Dave Hooker, and we're going to get to UTEP. It's not as much a breakdown about Tennessee's upcoming opponent as it is about how Tennessee can get better. And Fred, I'd like to ask you, what are some ways that Tennessee can improve in this tune-up game coming up on Saturday?
Well, for one, you need to build depth on your football team. As you can see in the last few games we played, first half, offensive line, we need some depth there. We need more guys to be able to be game ready and ready to play. Also, defensive line, the secondary, receivers and running backs have actually played very well. Quarterbacks have done pretty good also when they've had time. I like to see them build depth in the trenches, man, and make some things happen there. Find guys who can get on the football field and make things happen. Get them some playing time and meaningful snaps during their game, and build depth for your team. Because the SEC, like I said, the SEC schedule is coming right up. I mean, it's right around the corner. Next Saturday, you're playing against Florida, and I know Florida got beat by Kentucky, but whenever you play Florida, Florida is still Florida.
They are. Tennessee. Yeah, they are Florida, and I'm curious about that series when you played them, because I thought there were a couple of times that they won where you had the better team. You got the win in '98, of course, but what is that mentality like when you play a team that's had your number for a while?
Well, I mean, for one, Florida does not expect to lose against Tennessee, and that happened when Steve Spurrier got there. I don't know what he said to his guys in the locker room, but whatever it was he told them, that streak got started, and it's just been, it's been the same ever since. You got to find ways to look at Florida and say, man, we can handle these guys, we can beat them, and just make it happen. But it's easier said than done. There's several times when I played against Florida, 95 being one of those teams, better than them, 96, 97, 99. I mean, we were better than those guys pretty much every team I played on, or very, very well matched with them either way it goes. But it's a mentality. They're expecting to win. We did too, but they got all the breaks for some reason. Just so happened in that 98 game, we got all the breaks with 6 turnovers and still had to win in overtime. So, I mean, that rivalry between Florida and Tennessee, regardless of what the record is of the other team, when they play against each other, I would not be looking for a blowout on either side. I mean, I'm looking for it to be a pretty good game, and Florida can be 1-3. I would still never say that's an automatic win, simply because it's Florida.
Let's turn to Tennessee. What player in the defensive front seven would you like to see take a step more than any other?
The guy wearing my old number, man, number 2.
Shaw
Tuttle. I'd like to see him go out there and dominate, man. I mean, I know you can't do it by yourself, but I will say this. If he becomes a force in the middle of that line, it makes his other 2 defensive ends better. It makes Alexis Johnson better. It makes Phillips better. Because then you got to figure out, who am I going to double team? Make them double team you. And take away the pressure off your linebackers so they can flow to the ball and those type of things. I like to see Shy Tuttle go and turn his game up another notch and make it happen.
When you see glimpses of Shy Tuttle, what kind of player do you see? Because he's been so injured, we don't know what he's like consistently, but I've seen a couple of flashes that remind me of some of the great defensive tackles that Tennessee's had in the past.
Absolutely. I feel the same way. To be honest with you, when they first got here, you got 2 guys came in at the same time, him and Khalil McKenzie. And when those guys came in, watching them play, Shy was far better in my opinion. And no offense to Khalil McKenzie, he's playing right guard in the NFL, which is probably a better position suited for him in college. But Shy showed me something. Low pad leverage, get off on the ball, come off with power, use your hands, get off the block, those type of things. He can shed a block pretty good. He can get his hands on the lineman before he gets his hands on him, and he can move him out of the way. Mountain of a man. He's shown those flashes. However, like you said, he's been injured several times. But if he plays like we've seen in those flashes for an entire season, you're looking at a kid that could be a first or second round draft pick. We haven't seen that much from him yet since he's been injured, but when he's at his best, he could be a force to be reckoned with. He could be a first-round draft pick.
As far as the front seven, Fred, UTEP is going to offer up a Kyle Loxley and a Ryan Metz. Loxley, in particular, is a guy that can run around quite a bit. As a defender, do you like playing a guy like that, or would you rather like playing a guy that's going to be standing in the pocket the entire game?
I'd much rather play against a guy who's a pocket passer, because you know where your target is. I mean, if you look at the guys, most times, like Tennessee has in the past, and most teams have issues with a quarterback that can scramble. Because if a guy can get outside the pocket and make some things happen with his legs and extend the play, it hurts your secondary and your linebackers when they're in coverage because they have to cover for longer. And then you don't know whether to come up, try to help on the tackle, or stay in coverage as a linebacker. I mean, so it can break down a defense easily by doing it, having a guy that can move around in the pocket. We played against Donovan McNabb, still to this day the best quarterback I ever played against in my entire life. He gave us fits. He gave us fits the entire game. He was hard to bring down, hard to corral, and he had a stellar night against us because we couldn't cover for that long. I don't care if you're Deion Sanders. You can't cover past 4 seconds.
No,
not effectively.
No. And I wonder how important it is to get your shots in on Kyle Loxley. You know, maybe make him a little bit more tentative when he leaves the pocket.
Well, one of the things with quarterbacks that can move, if you look at most of the guys who do that, when you play in the NFL, when guys played against Michael Vick or when they played against Donovan McNabb when he was still running, the one thing they did against those guys, they put pressure right in their face and kept outside contained with the outside linebacker or with the defensive end to be able to corral the guy and get the pocket collapsed. If you pressure a guy who can run up the middle, collapse the pocket, and also keep your outside contained, take away those running lanes, you can make some things happen with him. And you talk about a guy who can get beat up. And once you have a quarterback who can run, if he's gotten hit a few times or sacked, he's no longer looking downfield anymore. He's always trying to run from that point forward. It takes that clock away from his head. That internal clock, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, now that clock is gone when there's a guy who can actually scramble like that. If you're a pocket passer, you're used to it. When guys who can run, that clock starts to run a lot faster when they've gotten hit a few times.
We talked about Bryce Thompson, who you really like, a freshman. He got SEC Freshman of the Week. I want to ask you about Nigel Warrior back there. What has been your thoughts on how he's played at safety?
I mean, some good, some bad. I mean, he's got beat in coverage a few times. They've had a few busts in coverages, those type of things. He comes up and makes some tackles. He's trying to create turnovers, those type of things. I see him as a better football player than what he was last season, but I feel like he still has a little room to grow. And this game is a game he can actually start to grow in. I like to see him get an interception under his belt and try to figure out how to keep getting those. You got to be able to get one or two in order for you to feel how it feels to get that. You know what I mean? How that crowd sounds when you get it, or how your teammates feel, or how you actually feel for getting that turnover. But you got to see yourself doing it. And he has some ways to go, but he's still one of our best secondary guys, if not the best secondary guy we have.
You know me, I can overstate things, but to this point, has he been a little disappointing in his career, or is he on the right path, or how would you grade him compared to recruiting rankings, which I know aren't very fair?
Well, you can say he hasn't lived up to it, but I wouldn't say that potentially, basically because of the coaching he had before. And Coach Martinez, I think he did a pretty good job, but he's never been out of pass rush. And any secondary guy will tell you, if they don't have a pass rush, it's going to be hard. You're going to have a long career. It's going to be long for you. It's going to be a long path to try to win games and show that you have the talent. Most of the time, he's either making a touchdown-saving tackle or a tackle 5-10 yards downfield. I don't think he's ever had the opportunity to make those plays at the line of scrimmage like Eric Berry did, like myself, like a Julian Battle, like those guys that came before him, because we had a pass rush. He's never really had that. And that, for a defensive back, is tough. Now, he also has a better coach now, in my opinion, than Jeremy Pruitt and Coach Kelly, those guys, coaching him up. But also, look who He's one of the greatest football players to play at UT in the history of UT football. In my opinion, greatest safety to ever play at UT, Dale Carter's son. It's kind of hard to duplicate that. I mean, I wasn't that. Deion Grant wasn't that. Eric Berry wasn't even that. I mean, so we're talking about greatness as his father. That's a lot to live up to. So has he done good for himself? Absolutely. I think he's shown that he can play the game, and I think he can play the next level. Is he a first-round draft pick at this moment? No. But does he get a chance to play the next level? I think so. So has he lived up to it? I think he's lived up to what he can. But I don't know if he'll ever live up to his dad because he's one of the greatest to ever play.
If his name was Bob Jones and had no relation to Dale Carter, I don't even think we'd be having this conversation. We wouldn't. We would not be having this conversation. He's not his dad. His dad was stellar. I mean, one of the greatest to ever play at Tennessee. In my opinion, and in most safeties that played at Tennessee, Dale Carter's the best safety that ever played there. Hands down. Yeah.
Hands down. Myself and Deion Grant talk about it all the time. I think Deion and Eric Berry right up in the 2 and 3 range. But I look at it, and I always will say this to the day I die. Dale Carter's the best safety to ever play at Tennessee.
Where does Fred Watt rank?
Man, I'm so far down that list, I don't know.
I don't want to hear that. As far as a rock down, filled a running gap, safety, you're right up there, man.
Man, that's for you to say, and for me to say, man, I've seen so many great players at UT. I don't know where I fit in there when it comes to that ranking.
I'm going to throw one other defensive name at you, and we're going to talk about the other side of the ball, Tennessee's offense, on tomorrow's podcast. But Jonathan Kongbo, I mean, can he get to the next level? Can he be a disruptive, scary pass rusher?
He has to trust his technique and what his coaches are trying to keep teaching. And all habits die hard. So if he buys in 100%, and he just trusts the process, trust what they're trying to teach him, trust what you're doing. You got to show that you can do it week in and week out, in practice every day as well. And it is not all right, I'm just going to throw everything out of the window because this is not working right now. There's a process. Sometimes it's not working right now just because of the play they may be running. Sometimes it's not working right now because you didn't take the right step. Sometimes it's not working right now because they're focused on double teaming you. However, you keep going forward. You keep moving forward with what they keep teaching you, and I promise you at some point it will pay off. So I need him to not be frustrated and that he can't get to the quarterback at the moment and just continue to play within the confines of the defense. Because when you go off and do your own thing, all you do is hurt your defense and you hurt yourself as well. You make yourself not look like you're not able to do the job, and it makes your team look bad. However, I think he can do it. I'm really pulling for the kid. I hope he can. He was a big recruit coming out of junior college and probably the number one recruit in junior college. We're just looking for him to turn that corner, and he can get it done. Just got to trust the process.
Well, we'll talk about the offense on tomorrow's podcast, Tennessee's offense versus UTEP's defense, who has a surprisingly good linebacker we'll talk about as well. That's the Hook 'em and Cover podcast. He is Fred White. I'm Dave Hooker. We'll talk to you tomorrow.